Why was Sofia Falcone locked away at Arkham? Why were there protesters in the streets during her brother's funeral? And why was she referred to as the Hangman in the second episode of The Penguin? Sofia Falcone, heir to the Falcone crime family, has been grappling with her father's top enforcers for the first 2 episodes of the Penguin series, attempting to carve her place at the head of the table, as it is her birthright. Right now, however, her greatest liability seems to be her history, as she was in Arkham for killing at least 7 women, which makes her an unstable wildcard that the rest of the Falcones need to make sure they can handle correctly. We see that her own family fears her, and that her time in Arkham is a dark shadow looming over everything that she does. She has lost her credibility, and there is no telling how long she can hold out before slipping back into her gruesome ways. So today, let's talk about the Hangman, and why Sofia Falcone became a serial killer in the first place, as well as speculate about her future in the Penguin. In the comics, much like in the Batman, Sofia became a serial killer after her father was murdered. Only in the original source material, he was murdered by Harvey Dent, otherwise known as Two-Face. This comes from the Long Halloween story, which we know was one of the predominant inspirations for the Batman universe, and so we'll be specifically looking at a combination of the Long Halloween as well as the Dark Victory stories. When the story begins, Dent is the acting district attorney, and he is committed to helping Gordon and the GCPD clean up the streets of Gotham. One of his prime targets is the elusive serial killer known as Holiday, who has began killing people on specific holidays, and on top of all of this, he is also attempting to figure out the whereabouts and the operations of Carmine Falcone. Dent becomes determined to get the Falcone crime family dethroned from its place of prominence in Gotham, which leads him into conflict with Sofia's father. As this issue takes its toll on Harvey Dent, he becomes more and more vengeful as the story continues, and becomes much more loosely committed to following proper channels. The weight of the killing stacks up on Harvey over time, and at the end, we learn that he orchestrated a jailbreak from Arkham in order to take justice with his own hands, and to end Falcone himself. At this point in the game, many of the villains who would come to be known as Batman's rogues are simply referred to as freaks, and because of Dent, they are all let back onto the streets. Some of Batman's most iconic villains, including the Joker, as well as the Penguin, take place in the jailbreak, but Dent is focused on finding Falcone. After a fight with Batman, he is able to escape in the fray and murder Carmine as the 3rd iteration of the Holiday Killer. We know as of now that Arkham already has a number of notorious inmates, including not just the Riddler who flooded the city at the end of the Batman, but this universe's Joker as well. Right now, there is no telling how many other future villains could be locked away in Arkham, and if this universe will see a jailbreak inspired by the events of the Long Halloween, it could get bad fast. It's unlikely that it would be Harvey Dent to orchestrate the breakout in this universe, but more on this in just a minute. The reason why this specific background is important for the Penguin is because this is how Sofia built her victim profiles. In the comics, when Sofia became the Hangman in the Dark Victory story, her killings were specifically decided by this event in order to get revenge on her father's murder at the hands of Dent. She targeted police officers and law enforcement officials that had a direct hand in getting Harvey into the office of the district attorney. She did not specifically target corrupt or straight arrow cops, only ones that helped Dent. Her first victim was Chief Clancy O'Hara, who was committed to healing Gotham from the inside out, and by all accounts, he was one of the most faithful and incorruptible officers on all of the GCPD. This murder was quite literal, as the officer was found at the end of a noose hanging from the westward bridge, but Sofia's killings would quickly evolve. On the other end of the spectrum, her next victim was Commissioner Loeb, who had a long documented history with the Maroni and the Falcone family, which made him an easy sellout. He was so well protected by both sides of the mob that he believed that he was untouchable, as he has actually mediated conflicts between the 2 crime families for a time. He was as corrupt as they came, and it wasn't long before he was found strung up in his own home. Over the course of the nearly next year, Falcone would target a dozen cops and several other victims getting unwillingly caught in the crossfire, but this was all in service of eventually getting to Harvey Dent. Not only did several of Gotham's finest get directly targeted though, but some of the collateral damage included John and Mary Grayson, the parents of future Robin, Dick Grayson, and Sal Maroni's children, Pito and Umberto, among several others. When she conducted her murders, she drew a crude depiction of the Hangman game, complete with a message only half scribbled in blood. This, in addition to physically hanging several of her victims, is where she adopted the name the Hangman. But the story does not end here. One of the side effects of these murders was the eruption of a gang war between the Falcone crime family and the Maronis, which bears a striking resemblance to what we see being set up in the Penguin series. We know that the Penguin is working to pit the two gangs against one another, and eventually, he hopes the two will tear each other down and leave a power vacuum. Once both operations are sufficiently crippled, he can use his assets from both sides to rise as the new kingpin of Gotham. But Sofia throws a complicated wrench into this plan. Even though she is a Falcone and is next in line to run the operation, we know that she's being ostracized by her family, and that the Penguin believes that she's capable of much more. She is fiercely loyal to her father and hates Salvatore Maroni and his people with a burning passion, as of course in the series, she believes that they killed her brother. This makes her a valuable weapon, while she is also an incredibly dangerous loose end. If and when she eventually finds out that Oz was the real culprit, she will undoubtedly stop at nothing to see the Penguin hang. In the Batman universe, it was the Riddler who claimed the life of Sofia's father, not Harvey Dent, so it doesn't seem like Sofia was specifically targeting law enforcement in this universe. It's also important to note that her bloodthirst is much more centered around her brother than her father, at least for what could be this second wave of killing, so Alberto is who we have to keep our eye on this time around. Since she believes the Maronis are responsible as we mentioned, it's possible that she will turn her talents towards their operation, drifting even further away from her family and taking matters into the hands of the Hangman. It's also revealed on the radio that her known victims were all women, which leaves us to wonder exactly what her previous motivation was in this retelling, and why her victim profile was specifically tailored towards women. Right now, there isn't a lot of firm evidence to suggest why she specifically targeted these women, but we will have to wait and see if the reason is ever given, which we believe of course it will. This does not, however, mean that she can't adapt to the needs of the present, especially if she's planning on turning against those who have inherited her father's empire, as well as those that she believed killed her brother. Right now we know that it's her uncle and her close friends of her father who are keeping her at arm's length, and as far as she knows, it was Maroni who killed her father, so it's possible that we may see a spin on her profile from the comic. Rather than targeting law enforcement, she may begin taking on her own approach towards enacting vengeance on the Maronis. We know that Sal Maroni has several key players in the organization, and that the war which is set to begin will be a chess match between the two gangs. Running a business, especially a legal one, is a complicated effort with a lot of moving parts, so there's no telling how many prospects or victims Sofia has lined up if she ever goes off the reservation. Instead of cops, it's possible that the Maronis may start dropping dead by the dozens. It is clear right now that Sofia is hanging on by a thread. Violence is like a drug to her, and it's apparent that she's a victim who has just gotten out of rehab. She is an addict, and her drug is violence and blood. This could be a slippery slope where just a single murder spirals out of control, where she is unable to stop herself. If so, it's only a matter of time before the Penguin's plan comes crashing down, and Sofia learns the truth of what really happened to her brother, placing Odd firmly in the crosshair. But anyway friends, what do you think of Sofia Falcone's history as the Hangman serial killer? Would you like to see this identity in action in the Penguin? And do you think that this is what the series is setting its sights on? How much longer until Sofia snaps? And will we see several members of the Maroni crime family become victims of the Hangman? As always my friends, hit that subscribe button for more DC news and lore, and have a great day.